Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother Canada 10 Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and this is the podcast where we talk about everything from the feeds, and we also rate the players based on how well we think they are doing this week in the game. With us this week is Maggie. How you doing, Maggie?
Hi, Taran. Hi, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here. This was before I joined RHAP. This was my favorite podcast every week. I was always so excited to listen to what you guys thought. And I can't believe I'm going to be here giving some scores. I'm a little nervous. So everybody go easy on me. It's my first time.
Yes, Maggie here joining us for the first time. I think it's only appropriate that we welcome her to the roundtable with a...
I'm a bad boy.
Maybe I'll be a bad boy to all your stacks, guys. Maybe I'll be a bad boy to all your stacks.
Yeah,
we
like that sound clip here. We are fans of that sound clip on this podcast.
Oh, boy. Also with me tonight, of course, is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing great. I am very excited. Maggie's never been on the roundtable before, so I'm very excited. They will not take it easy on you. So, no matter how many times you ask, they'll just still be mean, and that's fine. But you'll probably get some people who are nice. I don't know. It depends. I guess it depends what your stocks, what you end up rating everyone. Like, people tend to go nuts when Amon is on because Amon, that's the beauty of it, though. You don't know what to expect with some raiders. There it is. The second I mentioned Amon, it came on. That's the cue.
Be prepared for why in the world would they give a person this rating?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of the point of the podcast, is that we explain it. But yeah.
Listen up, guys. Also, don't on Twitter. I don't have one. My Twitter's gone, so it's not there. You won't find me.
There we go.
That's probably where you go.
You heard it here first.
Well, as I said, we are here to talk about everything happening here on the Big Brother Canada 10 live feeds, and it has been. We talked about this a little bit this morning. It's been one of the slower weeks of the season. Not a bad week, but it's not quite as hectic as some of the previous ones have been. Honestly, in part just because of how much the feeds have been down. There has been plenty of movement happening. There was a plan. The plan failed, and then there was an option for the plan to not fail, and they chose to fail it anyway. And now there's all sorts of betrayals and future plans happening. So there's still plenty to talk about here, but we'll have some fun with it. Maggie, how have you been feeling about the week?
I have loved the sort of like pseudo battle between Kevin and Josh that's been going on that I don't think Josh realizes that he's in. I think Gino and Jace could not have played this week worse. What was Jace thinking? Not using that veto, or not solidifying anything before not using that veto. That is just blowing my mind. You didn't really get into it this morning on the update, Taran, but I really need to talk it through with you guys because I just don't understand where her head was at when it came to that. I just simply what? Like you said, the plan failed on purpose, but it didn't fail on purpose because they didn't choose a new plan. They were just I guess we haven't spoken about it laying down, so we can't do it. What? I don't understand. It's wild to me that happened. And I just, that's sort of my thoughts overall on the week. I think Marty going out would have been exciting, but I think for some people it's really good for their games. For some people it's bad for their games. And just it didn't have to happen this way. It didn't,
Yeah. We're going to talk about the secret power that was introduced into the game. I do feel like Jace had a case of the you really if you're craving pizza, you're all right, I really want pizza. I'm going to go to my favorite pizza place. And then you drive all the way there, and it's oh no, the place is closed. What am I? Oh, I gotta find a different place to go out and eat. all right, instead, I'm going to go and get like, I don't know, I'm going to go to like get Chinese food or something. I don't know what it is. And then you start like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get great Chinese food. This is going to be great. It's going to be fine. I'm going to be so happy about the Chinese food. And then halfway to the Chinese food place, your friend calls and they're like, hey, the pizza place just opened. And you're like, what? But I'm already excited about the Chinese food now. Should I go back for the pizza? Because I wanted the pizza.
Except, hold on, Taran. This is not an apt comparison because she wanted sushi. And her friend who she was with wouldn't go to get sushi with her. So she settled on Chinese food. So like, she's not getting what she wants at all. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. She wants Summer to go. And that would be the right thing for specifically her game. The only person whose game it benefits for Summer to go is JC Lynn. And she had a secret power to try to make that happen. Like, take Moose down, put Betty up, Summer goes. Like, what? Nobody has to know it's you. Like, it's just like, I really don't understand it. And I think it's just like bad gameplay, you know? Like, it's not like, oh, I don't see where her head's at. I think she just like, I don't know.
I can't believe we just did a whole food metaphor and we didn't use Wendy's. Or Twistos.
God, what were we thinking?
Yogurt. Or yogurt.
No, we had all those right there. Darn it.
Oh boy, Melissa, how have you felt about this week in the game?
I feel like I understand why people are saying it's boring because it kind of is. I get that, like, I don't know, that like, yeah, it's quote unquote exciting that like a plan didn't go as planned. But at the same time, the plan that would have happened is way more exciting than just having two pawns quote unquote stay on the block. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you had these options to end up making it happen with this like secret veto. I feel like it's like, yeah, sure, there's behind the scenes of like, should they use it or should they not? But then like having them use it or having Marty end up on the block as a back door, like those things are exciting because you get to see the outcome. You get to see, you know, like what happens. There's drama, there's this and that. But instead it's kind of like, okay, there could have been some stuff. And the fact that there could have been some stuff made it a little interesting, but at the same time, the outcome is the same and nothing happened. I just feel like at the same time, I mean, I personally don't know if I wanted Marty to leave this week because like, it is kind of interesting to be like, you know, keep this big threat, I guess, this wild card in the house still. And then they still have to try and get him out. Whereas like, if they just take him out this week, then, you know, okay, then we get out the next person, then the next person. Now it's like, at least Marty's still kind of like, I don't know, in it. At the same time, like, is that something we want? I don't know. So I really feel like I am torn on this week. I'll be honest, I wasn't super invested this week just because I did feel like it was pretty much like, oh, okay, like Gino won, and then, you know, there's no situation where like the showmance gets broken up or anything like that, and then it's like this veto doesn't get used, and like I don't know, I don't really care to see Jace and Gino strategize all that much, if I'm being honest. So, you know, did not love the week all that much. I'd be
this is the question
reflective of the ratings.
Can I just ask something?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do see in theory that like keeping Marty around is good for Kevin and Helena, but Marty is like a ticking time bomb. Like they think they have control over him, but I am not certain that they do. Like I could see Marty completely flipping on them or destroying their games by outing some like secret information. And I think that Marty is like, you know, it's the idea of like keeping someone around who you're like, oh, it's fantastic. Like nobody really likes them in the house. They can win these comps. They can be like my bulldozer. But like your key to the bulldozer only turns it on like 50% of the time. And then the other time it just like goes rogue. So I'm not really sure that like, yes, in theory, if Marty was a good player who was loyal to Kevin and Helena, that 100% is the right move. But I do feel like he's such a wild card that it's dangerous to keep him in the game.
I think you're looking at it through the lens of a structural player, of a Herman, of a Derek, of somebody who wants to create a stable atmosphere where they have people that will be bulldozers for them, that will be nice and stable, that they can control and make sure that they know exactly what's going to happen. But like that's not really Kevin's game. Nor really could it be, because he doesn't have that level of control over the house. He sort of has to work with the ticking time bombs. Like he has to manage and jump from like platform to platform and make sure that he's just not on the platform that blows up when the chaos happens. That's sort of been his game to this point, and I think it's what works for him. So I think that the fact that Marty's a wild card makes it honestly like a little bit. I mean, obviously, like having Marty not be a wild card would be a little bit more ideal. But at the same time, like the fact that he's all over the place does allow Kevin to work some magic in a way that works for Kevin. So I think it's the right call.
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I see what you're both saying. I just feel like it's like, if I was Kevin, I'd be a little freaked out by it, because I feel like it's like a lot of the logic comes from like, well, we can make it so that Marty doesn't put us on the block. Like he's chaotic and we don't really know exactly what he's going to do, but at least he's not going to go against us. Whereas like, I don't feel like that's the case at all. I feel like Marty is a complete wild card where you have no idea if he's going to put you up. You have no idea if all of a sudden he's going to be like, yeah, I think you betrayed me, so now I'm putting you on the block for one reason or another. So like, I get like the wanting the chaos of it, where it's like, you don't know what he's going to do, so you can't control him. But at the same time, like you feel protected. But I feel like there's no protection with Marty whatsoever. If anything, it's just a liability. So I mean, I don't know.
I do feel like when push has come to shove, Kevin has always had the last say with Marty. Like Kevin is the person that got Marty to flip on Kyle in the first place. Kevin was able to, even going further, beyond that. Marty was thinking about using Kevin as the replacement nominee when Jace won the veto in Marty's first HOA train. And Kevin was able to get in there and convince him not to, and then developed a relationship from there where he then convinced Marty to flip on Kyle the following week. And then as the weeks have progressed, even though Marty like went off on a tangent after the double eviction and very nearly went after Josh and Betty, he was eventually able to get him to come around and do what he wanted, which was target Herman. So, I think there's obviously reason to be like wary of Marty, but especially when you start looking at the other players, like Summer's too smart to be completely manipulated by Kevin, maybe guided in certain directions, but not manipulated in the same way that he can with Marty. Gino and Jace, like they can be pushed as well, but they can't be manipulated again in the same way. And they're very strong together as a pair. Then, Moose he's never been able to like make that connection with Moose. The personalities just don't mesh well enough. And then he's obviously got Josh. He has Betty a little bit, especially through Josh, and he has Helena. And so the next best person for him is Marty, especially to take some heat off of him as a big target. At the very worst, he's somebody that gets taken out by somebody else, and that's a free week for him. And at best, it is a weapon that he can use and continue to use moving forward. So, it's like who else should go or who else should like he try to protect over Marty? Like what? Like if Marty leaves, he's stuck with people that are, not as good as Marty for Kevin, I think.
True.
Yeah.
True. I don't know.
I think that his decision, like, you harken back to week 2 when Marty was going to use Kevin as that pawn, and Kevin really, really worked on him and then was like, I trust Marty. Like, even that choice is something I never would have done as Kevin, ever. I would have been like, okay, this guy needs to not use me as the replacement nom, and then he's out of here. And so even that, I guess, just shows that like Kevin is able to he's able to like forgive and move on if it's good enough for him. Like if it doesn't matter what anyone's done to him in the past. If they can if right now that's what he needs is them, it's fine. That's just a very interesting way of playing.
Betty literally kept saying to him,
I do hate you.
And he was like, that's great. This doesn't matter.
Well, I like that form of gameplay kind of. I mean, I feel like it's like we don't see that all that often. I think a lot of times we get like people who take things very personally and like once you're betrayed, it's over for you. When I feel like it's kind of a more interesting strategy to like kind of just play it week to week and just like, how do I get through this week? Okay, how do I get through the next week? Instead of like thinking about like loyalties necessarily. And I feel like it's a very like, I don't know, like Dr. Will's style of gameplay where it's just like, you know, how do I move forward right now? Like, how do I do this rather than like, oh no, I feel betrayed by this person, so now I'm going to not work with it. You know, it's like it's kind of that old school style of gameplay that I always look for, which is just not based on loyalties necessarily, and is more based on like if you're good, like maybe we haven't worked together this entire game, maybe we were against each other at the beginning of the game, but at this point, if you're leaving potentially out the door, like, but I think you staying would be better for my game. I'm going to figure out a way to work with you. And now we're going to work together. And I like that where it's more fluid in that way than just like, oh yeah, you know, you were against me earlier on. So yeah, see ya. Like it just, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think Dan is the first one to like really exemplify this in season 10. As Dr. Will said, he hated everyone, you know, in his various seasons, and he had that element to him for sure. But like Dan was the person who had people screaming at him, and just like took it and like. Still not targeting Jerry. Like it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. And then I think Kevin Martin is another example of this kind of player who like very much like, I don't care if you're my friend or if you're screaming at me. I'm going to do what's best in my head strategically.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Hoffman did that like in season 12. Brendan and Rachel were like, we hate you.
Yep.
And he was like, nobody put them up. Nobody
Yep.
put them up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a specific type of personality. I think people aren't like a codependent personality, like are able to just be like, it's fine. Like, I don't care if you like me. Whereas I would be like, ow, that hurt my feelings. Like, I don't know that I could do that.
I do not think I'd be able to play that way. I do not think I'd be able to play that way. I think I would love to play that way and I would hope that I would play that way, but it would be really hard because you really have to separate like the emotionality out of like any of it. It has to be just like pure gameplay, pure like what's best for my game, like, you know, like this is a game, this is not real life, like and I get that everybody I feel like goes in thinking that, but you know, it's so hard to keep any sort of emotion out of it. It's just like, you know, because you feel things and you can't just like turn it off like that, like for the most part. So yeah, I would love to play that way though.
All right. Well, let's just kind of run through some of the events here again. Not too many events to get through, but we obviously saw Gino win the HOH. We don't need to continue to beat the buzzkill corpse here, but that was disappointing. Gino wins the replacement HOH competition. He wants to backdoor Marty. He nominates Moose and Summer to do so. We could talk about the legitimacy of that strategy. I personally found it to be fine from Gino's perspective, if like given his stated goal ultimately, right? Which I disagree with, but in terms of achieving his stated goal, I thought it was fine. And then Helena wins the veto. Does not use it, but there was a twist thrown in, which is that a secret veto was planted in the house or something, clues to a secret veto that we believe Jace managed to find and also decided to not use it, despite the fact that she had been on board with the plan to get rid of Marty. This is what we were referring to earlier with the pizza and the Wendy's and all of that. Basically she was on board with the plan to get rid of Marty, but when Helena won the veto, they kind of backed off of the plan because they didn't think Helena was going to use it. And also like Kevin was really pushing like, it's not the right move. It's not the right move. And then by the time she actually had the ability to do something about it, she was like, we've already kind of moved past this plan, I guess. So
and Gino's just okay with that. I feel like his whole plan.
He also had kind of moved past the plan. No, I think if Gino had the veto, he might have done it. But I think he was like they had kind of talked to each other about like they'd come to terms with the fact that Marty was staying and kind of like progressed their plans forward with that in mind. And so I think from Gino's perspective, it's like, yeah, you know, she didn't want to make that call on her own, given that what we talked about. I think like, you know, it kind of makes sense on a weird level, but like, it's definitely weird.
Are they not
Well,
at all thinking that somebody might reveal to Marty or whoever that that was their plan? And then like, I mean, the whole idea initially is like, okay, Gino, I don't know if this is a great idea because Marty like seems to be really on board with working on you. He doesn't want to turn on you again. I mean, who knows if that holds any water because it's Marty. But at the same time, he's saying he doesn't want to turn on you. He doesn't want to betray you. He wants to work with you, whatever. And yet you're still trying to backdoor him. And not only that, you're telling people you're backdooring him. And then like you decide not to do it. If that gets to Marty, he's going to be really pissed. And like, I guess Gino could argue like, well, I just told that to them because I wanted them to think they were a pawn, even though the two of them, I was going to put them on the block anyway. And I wasn't planning on using a veto, but like, there's no way to prove that because Helena won the veto. So there's no way to prove that you wouldn't have used the veto and you wouldn't have backdoored Marty. And I just feel like it's just getting so messy.
It's very messy.
Yeah, I think that like the way you described it, Taran, how you were like, it sort of makes sense in a weird way. If we're like also factoring in that like Gino and Jace are not good. Like if you factor that in, you're like, okay, well then I guess it makes sense. But like if Jace was playing optimally, none of this would have happened. Like I can tell you the exact thing that she should have done throughout the week to get Summer out, which is what she should have done this week. And she had the power to do it if she had the ability, like the social ability and the strategic thinking, but she just like is not there. And it was really disappointing. And I don't think, look, I don't want Summer to go. I'm not like, but if Jace is the one who has the power, that's the one person that she has said she wants gone, and they're on the block, like do everything you can to solidify them leaving. I just don't, it's craziness to me.
Well, that's sort of where we are now. The nominations remained the same. Moose and Summer on the block. As of right now, Moose is the one that will be leaving on Thursday. Gino and Jace would prefer for Moose to leave. Kevin, Helena, and Josh, who actually decide the vote, have also decided that Moose is the one that should leave. They did consider changing their minds today, but they, as of right now, are still locked in on Moose leaving. So, Moose, it's time for Moose to go. He never got to meet Marcia. It's disappointing.
Well, honestly, I mean, I just feel like he lost all his steam. Like after the whole Kyle incident or something. I don't know what happened, but I just feel like
it's not in English. It is in sport media.
Oh, Moose.
I hate that clip. It just makes me that is a not Melissa favorite clip. That is no bad boy clip. But I just feel like he can kind of go for me. As much as I like him as a person, I just feel like I'm not really getting anything out of him. I feel like I feel like he was doing really well. And then he kind of I don't know, went a little too much. And then he just backed up completely, just like to nothing. And now he's just kind of like a non-entity and isn't really doing anything in the house. And I just feel like I'm not super impressed right now. So I feel like,
He reminds me a little bit of Big Brother 21, Nicole Anthony. In that like he was kind of like in there playing kind of hard for a little while. He touched the hot stove and was like, and then kind of for the rest of the game was just kind of like a little bit hesitant to really push too hard on anything or talk too much game. Nicole Anthony also was very good at damage control. I think Moose is also pretty good at damage control. The problem here is that where Nicole kind of was able to hook up with Cliff and they were able to do some good things. Unfortunately for Moose, his allies never really got any momentum going, and he was unable to get any footing in the game here. So this appears to be it for our Moose.
Yep. Goodbye, Mayhem Moose. We loved you.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say him in past tense.
Remember when Moose was Mayhem?
Yeah.
That was fun. Nothing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I did ask the audience I asked them, who do you want to be evicted this week? And 58% of them did say Moose. But it was very close, 58% to 42%.
Honestly, it could go either way for me. I just don't really care. I feel like they both aren't really giving me what I want anymore. And I just feel like it's like, I don't know. I feel like Summer's kind of lost it in terms of like, I mean, I just did not quite love how she went for the slot pass and didn't really try for the HOH, and then kind of just like has kind of just like, same with Moose, taking her foot off the gas and just like kind of let it ride. And you're not in a place for that. And I feel like with Summer's game, it's kind of what you get when you mainly have social game. And if you can't like parlay that into like strategic game as well, like then that's
It's very Big Brother 17 Meg to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was two sides sort of going at it, and then like, but well, like not really solidified sides on either season. Just like, so it was sort of like, and then Meg lost some allies like pretty quickly, and then was just sort of like, I'm fun to have around.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept super sweet and lovely to be around, but like did not have the ability to like really get in there and strategize.
Right. And it's like that can only take you so far. It's like, you know, you that's super helpful in early stage game, because it's like you want people who are fun and funny and like, you know, that have that social game, because it's really not about necessarily like always about strategy at that point. But then like as it gets into like the second half of the game, it's like you need to have allies, you need to have strategy, you need to have, you know, the ability to like persuade someone of something. And I feel like if you don't really have allies and you don't really have anything solid and you don't have a plan, it's kind of just like, please keep me around and like hopefully this works, I'm really cool and fun. And it's like it's just not really there's no there at that point.
It's again, I feel like I see this so often, and I know I've said this a few times already this season, but you see it so often that a player is doing really well socially, they're set up really well in the early game, and they're like, I can just throw comps. And they throw competition after competition, and they watch as ally after ally gets evicted. And they're not getting evicted because they're set up well. They're safe. They are so insulated. But piece by piece, they lose that insulation. And by the time they recognize that, like, oh man, I'm starting to not be set up well anymore, it's like, yeah, now there's a ton of momentum and a ton of other people are set up well because they've been playing and they've been winning. And now you need to start winning. And it's like, oh crap, now I need to start winning. And it's like, it's too late at this point, because you usually aren't able to maintain that.
It also kind of reminds me of Tina, from like last season or something, where it was like we were rating her so high and we were so like pumped on her, and we were like, she's got this, she's so well set up, like we see so much potential. And then it was like the second it actually mattered and the game kicked into gear, it was like she just disappeared. And I feel like we had been rating Summer so high, and we were like, this girl, like she is it, she's the best player in the house right now. Now it's like, oh, okay, there's nothing there anymore.
Yeah. Well, we talked about how Gino messed up by not telling Kevin and Helena the plan to backdoor Marty. But I did ask the audience, let's say you're Gino. Who should you have targeted? Who should Gino have targeted this week? Should it have been Marty? Was that the right call? Or is there somebody else that he should have targeted this week to better advance his game for the good here for his game? And 21% of the audience did say Marty, which I still don't think is really the call. It wasn't the top choice, though. The top choice with 36% was Kevin. He should have just targeted Kevin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can't say I disagree.
They don't see that though, because of Kevin, the way that Kevin presents himself. Like they don't understand that Kevin is the one that they should be going after. And I think that Gino is in a weird spot right now where, because he's a showman, it's like, it doesn't matter who he takes out. People are always going to be looking at him next. Like, yeah, Marty is there and that's a good shield for him, but Moose was also a good shield for him. Josh is a good shield for him, but because he's two people, like eventually that's going to happen unless you're Jackson and Holly and you win out. You know, like it just is not, it's just hard for him, I think, to be like, for us to be like, it's so clear, like this is the move because it would have given him all of this. Like, I think he's sort of in a bad position no matter what he does. He would be in a better position if he went after Kevin, but I still think like he just is in a spot where he's so visible right now. And it's just, yeah.
I'm also shocked that there aren't more people who are trying to target the showmance as a unit, because I mean, there is the potential for them to just win out. I mean, they're both good at competitions, Gino especially, but JC Lynn isn't bad. She's won a few. And so it's like, I just feel like you need to like nip that in the bud now, or else you're just going to see an end game where they just one win. And then like, you know, what are we going to do?
Here's what I think I would have, like, if I was like trying to give Gino advice. If I was Paris this week and I had the ability to tell Gino what to do, I'd probably say target the person third on this list. Josh, with 16% of the vote, was in third place on this poll. Target Josh. He's the biggest competition threat, who is also like very dangerous to your game because of his connection to Kevin. By targeting Josh, you weaken Kevin quite a bit. And also, like, while you're doing that, work on Summer and Moose. They are pullable. Like, you can get them to maybe not come after you. Whereas, you know, I know they tried with Josh and Betty. Josh and Betty are too game savvy. As we saw, they were already spinning their wheels about like, we should turn on the showman soon. And Kevin would have gotten in there to convince them, even if they hadn't been thinking it themselves. Whereas I think somebody like Moose, if the showmans went to Moose and was like, hey, we really want to make this official, Moose, we want to work with you. I think Moose is down for that. To some degree. I think obviously there's always a risk that they turn on you, but I think that they are the people most likely to actually work with you. And then with that, you hopefully going into next week have Marty, who at least won't target you. You have Summer and Moose, who will hopefully not target you. And you're working against, at that point, Betty, Kevin, and Helena, which is like not terrible for you at that point. Whereas going into this week, like, they've got a lot of people coming for them at this point. So, and there's no, like, you haven't like almost backdoored Marty to give that extra ammunition for why Marty would have targeted you, as well as the fact that you could even pull Marty in even closer by doing what he wants, which is what he wanted this week was for Josh to go. So it's like, hey, Marty, we're listening to you again. We're really helping rebuild. You wouldn't betray us a third time, right? And maybe he would, but I feel like that's the play here. I feel like Josh is the play. It weakens Kevin and Helena, and you could maybe pull Moose and Summer over, and it also prevents, hopefully, like, Moose and Summer from, like, if you did target Marty, potentially joining forces with Josh and Betty. So by taking Josh out of that equation, again, like, worst case scenario, you're now looking at like Betty, Summer, and Moose teaming up against you, even though you did just make a deal with them. And then maybe you also have Kevin and Helena against you, but you're still not like in the worst place in the world here. I feel like that was the play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially because I feel like it also makes sense from like an in-game perspective where people don't really see Kevin as being like doing what he's doing. I mean, people are saying that Kevin's doing nothing in the game, which obviously isn't true. But like, if that's the perception in the game, I could imagine Gino being like, yeah, why would I want to get rid of Kevin? That's a waste of an HOH. Whereas like someone like Josh, who is coming extremely close to winning all these competitions and who you can clearly see has allies and who you can clearly see is doing stuff in the game. I feel like that is a much more logical target for someone in game than Kevin necessarily, just because apparently no one sees Kevin as a threat.
Mm-hmm. So I also asked the audience to rate the episodes, the feeds, and the season as a whole so far this week. Last week, it was very high. We had a 7.9 for the episodes, a 7.7 for the feeds, and an 8.2 for the season overall. This week, a 6.6 for the episodes, a 5.2 for the feeds, which they were down way too much. Very understandable. And the season as a whole dropped a few points to a 7.9 That not quite the high point of the season, but still very high here at a 7.9. Just a bit of an off week in terms of the episodes, in terms of the feeds being down so much. And then also the competitions this week were given a 5.6, which is very understandable considering the whole Buzzkill debacle. So little bit of a blip here on the ratings radar for the season.
Makes sense. It's been
all right. We also, of course, have the players. We're ranking the players from favorite to least favorite. We're almost getting to the point where we can really just run through the list. But who do we think are the top 2 and bottom 2 players on the favorite player list? Melissa, do you have any thoughts?
Top 2, maybe Kevin and Josh. I don't know.
And bottom 2?
Oh, I thought we were going to do top 2 and then do bottom 2.
Whatever we want. Maggie can give us the top 2. What do you think?
I think Summer and Kevin.
Okay. And the correct answer is Kevin and Josh.
Woo!
There you go. Who do we think is at the bottom 2?
Bottom 2 is probably Marty and Jace.
Agreed.
Melissa must have access to the survey because it is Marty and Jace.
Woo! That's
How long have you been doing this? You know she's the voice of the people. Come on.
Yeah, right? Yeah, the voice of the people who, for the most part, gets it wrong. But this season, I've been getting it right. So, you know.
There you go. The list is Kevin on top, followed by Josh, then Helena, the crash test dummies at the top. Then Betty, then Summer, then Moose, then Gino, Jace, and Marty at the bottom. There you go. That's the list. Not much more to it. Only 9 players in the game right now. Only 8 will remain by next week as we get toward the closing bit of the season. We're definitely looking at some sort of sped up evictions here as we head into the finale is almost just over 3 weeks away at this point. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so we're like, it will be 3 weeks at the final 8. So that would mean if it was a regular eviction, we'd go down to 7 by the 21st, and then down to 6 by the 28th, and then they would need to get rid of 3 people by the finale. So it makes sense to me that we will likely be getting some kind of double, maybe next week. And then we'll go from something like 8 to 6, and then 6 to 5. But even then, we 5 down to 4 is so yeah. Maybe there is a triple. Maybe there's something going on there, or maybe they've got something else going on.
I'd be fine with a double, but not a triple.
We'll see. Maybe a triple safety chain eviction.
Yeah, oh boy. Just anything but a triple, really, for me. I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. But that's what we've got. Are we ready to rate the players?
Yes.
Okay. Let's pull up the stock watch. This is, of course, the portion of the podcast where we rate the players based on how well we think they're doing in the game this week. It's usually some combination of their short-term safety, their long-term prospects, and just general judgment on what they're doing in the game this week, how we like or dislike their decision making. So we are going to start with Betty, with 1 being the worst rating, 10 being the highest rating. Let's talk first about Betty. I was pretty hard on Betty last week because she was on the block, and she kind of got herself there. And I really did not like the botched vote flip in the middle of the double. However, this week, I'm much higher on Betty because, first of all, I thought that she did a great job at the tail end of last week. After last week's roundtable, she really did kick it into gear. She did a lot of great campaigning for herself and also helped solidify this Final Four deal with Gino and Jace, which helped keep both her and Josh safe this week, and was huge. I also loved that this week she was the one pushing on to Josh, like, we're not going to stay loyal to that deal, though, right? Like, we need to be the ones to take the shot at them, which I love. She is in a pretty good spot at this point. Very few people are looking to target Betty. Some people would certainly put her up, but I don't think anybody's looking to take her out anytime soon. I feel like Betty is now positioned in a spot where she could easily end up in the end game and just be a couple of comps away from getting that underdog win. So for all of those reasons, I feel very good about Betty, and I'm gonna make a big jump. I'm gonna give Betty a 6.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That's a
I
big
wasn't
jump.
expecting that. I thought I was going to be the big jump. That's crazy.
I jump big.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think that, I mean, especially like, I think I always dock a point if someone's on the block, because the odds of them going home, just like, I mean, there's always a chance, you never know. So I think that's a lot of the reason why our rating was so low last week, or at least that was my rating, why my rating was so low, in addition to the other things you mentioned. But yeah, I think that she's in a much better spot now. And I think that as we make our way down the line, the odds of someone saying, well, I don't want to waste my HOH on Betty or something is higher and higher, because there are still so many large targets left in the house. So I do think she's in a much better spot. I don't know if I feel comfortable going up to 6, but I do feel like I do want to make a jump as well. Not a huge jump, but I feel pretty neutral on her right now. And so like it really could go either way. So for me, it's going to be a 5.
All right, Maggie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I gave Betty a 5 too, because you guys always say 5 is like the replacement level player. Like, this is the player that is like doing everything they need to do to stay safe. And I do think Betty probably like played at a 6 this week. Like, definitely what she did was better than replacement. So I see why you say that, Taran. But I just positioning wise, I don't think I can go up that high, because she still could be a casualty. Like, she is the type of player who, like, you throw her up next to Marty, and if Marty comes down and somebody else goes up that people don't want to get rid of, you can just be like, oh, let's just get rid of Betty this week. Like, and I could see her, if they do a triple eviction, I could see her being one of the 2 victims of a triple eviction. But Betty, like, this week has been so fantastic, because she's been like really, like, she got kicked into gear by Summer, flip-flopping on her and being like, I don't have friends here. Like, I'm not here for friends anymore. Like, let's play Big Brother. And I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like Betty is exactly the kind of person that is going to benefit from a player like Kevin running the game, where Kevin should be just taking out as many comp threats as possible and keeping people like Betty around for as long as possible. And with Betty, like, we're getting that taste of like killer instinct from her. I feel like, plus that, like, some of the connections that she's been able to make with the jury, I feel like she's definitely in this with a shot. So it's a 6 from me, but the audience disagrees with me, and they even disagree with the both of you. The audience even lower on Betty. The audience gave Betty a 4 this week.
Interesting. Well, they still went up.
The audience doesn't like big jumps.
Far. Yeah, they're not into that.
No.
Which is fine.
All right, let's talk about Helena. Melissa, where do you fall? Are we on
Gino?
Oh, sorry. They're different. They're different orders. Let's talk about Gino. Melissa, how do you feel about Gino?
It's hard, because I feel like we discussed, okay, so first of all, his plan didn't work out. Like, I think number one, great. He won HOH. That's a bump. That's great for him, because he could have been a target. He is a big target, and he could have been going home. So he wins HOH. That's great. He decides he wants to get rid of Marty. Well, maybe not so great. Maybe not his best move. Okay, so we already have that established. But then it doesn't work out. Okay, so maybe that's good for him in the long run, that like his plan didn't work out, because now he's not getting rid of Marty. But then also he's getting rid of Moose now? Like, I feel like I just don't know if this is good for him. I also don't know, like, if he's setting himself up in any sort of way moving forward. I really don't think he is. I think because he keeps winning, and because he's not creating these actual alliances. I mean, he's got that Final Four situation, but of course, Josh immediately goes and tells Kevin. So I don't think he's setting himself up in any sort of meaningful way that will make it good for him. I just feel like he's in danger. I feel worried for him for next week. Yeah, I don't know. It's concerning to me that he won HOH this week, isn't setting himself up well next week, and then he could literally like go home next week. I don't think he's playing this HOH the way he needs to be playing this HOH at this point in time. I'm honestly tempted to just stick with my 4. However, maybe I'm also feeling biased here because he's been like one of the few HOHs that didn't like absolutely lose their minds. So like, I guess that's a good thing. But I really think he's in danger next week. I think people will notice him as a target, will think of him as a threat, and will want to get him out. So God, I think I just want to stick with my 4. I don't feel much better about him this week, if I'm being honest. I just don't.
All right. Maggie, what do you think?
I gave him a 4 too, Melissa.
Right.
I think that he's in total danger. I think that he misplayed this week, not as bad as his counterpart, which we will get to, but he misplayed this week. The reason that I didn't give him a 3 is that I think that if he can make it to the end, he has really good, like much higher winner potential than some other people. Like Betty played way better than him this week. And she's only one step above him, but only because I think that right now, the way that they're playing, people respect Gino's game more than they respect Betty's. Totally. They shouldn't, I don't think, but they do. Maybe we'll see by the audience score as well, you know? But I think that he is in so much danger going into next week. But he's capable of saving himself with a veto. And especially if it's a quiz competition. Like, I mean, when I knew that Buzzkilled was being like that, they weren't going to do that, and I was like, oh well, then Gino's going to win because he won that quiz competition. Like he's very dangerous. Good. Yeah, he's dangerous in those quiz competitions.
Usually this type of player is like purely physical, and that's like all you need to worry about with them. But he's got it both, and he's really good. So that would scare me if I was in the house.
Yes, the thing is, I do like think that out of him and JC Lynn, like people are always going to take him out before they take JC Lynn out. But that's because like Gino, I think, could win way more than JC can at all. So like win competitions and like be in the final 2, like get votes to win. So yeah, that's why I'm going with a 4.
All right. Well, the audience again disagrees with the two of you, but this time in the other direction, the audience gave Gino a 5 this week.
What did I say about the audience undervaluing Betty and overvaluing Gino?
Well, I think I'm about to make this an exact copy of last week's ratings because I'm giving Gino a 3 again. I think
that is Gino, so sad that his HOH changed nothing.
But that's the thing. I think that his HOH, I think it made it worse in some ways. I think that by the end of last week, he was actually in a better position. And the HOH took him right back to where he was before, which is a huge target for almost everyone in the house. And even Marty at this point, especially given the fact that he almost knows with certainty, but certainly will know with certainty by next week if he wins power, that he was almost backdoored by Gino. I think there's a good chance that Kevin or Helena or both will be able to, maybe even with the help of Josh, convince Marty to take the shot at Gino. Summer wants to take the shot. Betty and Josh want to take the shot. Kevin and Helena want to take the shot. They've talked about the possibility of targeting Jace actually just today, but I feel like when it comes down to it, they will target Gino, because why wouldn't you target Gino? He has done nothing for his game this week. I think he made multiple mistakes, both in who he's targeting and also how he decided to target them. Target Marty by not telling Kevin and Helena, thought was a huge mistake. And then flip-flopping on his own idea. And like
I can't with that.
Being
That's
okay with the veto not being
me.
used. It's a whole bunch of mess. He continues to make decisions that I think are bad decisions. Given all of the like social connections and just general respect that the guy's had since he walked in the door, he should be in a much better position, especially for somebody that definitely wins if he's sitting in the final two. But I think everybody knows that he definitely wins if he's sitting in the final two, and I don't think anybody wants to allow him to get there. So for me, it's a 3. All right. Let's talk about Helena. Maggie, how do you feel about Helena?
Oh gosh, I'm scared to go first. Okay, I would like to say to everybody that I didn't go, like my scores this week are maybe a little lower than they would be, like even for the good moves, just because I feel like nobody really got their way this week. Like this is not like best case scenario. I gave Helena a 7, and I gave Helena a 7 because she saved her and Kevin's games sort of with her veto win. It's the reason that then Kevin was able to get all that information from Josh, but Kevin got that information, not Helena. Helena was kept in the dark all week about the plan. Helena was able to win and get herself into this position, but I think in order for this to have been an 8 or a 9 week for her, she would have had to have worked her way strategy and socially as well, like strategically and socially, in order for her to be in the position she is now. And she relied on a comp win, which is exciting that, we're seeing that she can win these comps. That's really good news for, I think, her overall win equity. But I can't go higher than a 7 just because this was sort of like a do or die moment. And she's very lucky that it's Gino and Jace who wanted to do this, and not someone who was going to push back harder and really expose her loyalty to Marty. Like she's lucky. Another reason that I didn't go higher is I know no one is targeting her right now, but I think it's because they don't respect her the way that they don't respect Betty. And I think that Helena is playing better than Betty and has been all season. But I think that she is going to, in these coming weeks, like I'm giving her room to grow so that she can get to that 10 when she wins. So that's why I'm giving her a 7.
All right. Well, the audience is with you. The audience also gave Helena a 7 this week. Just barely made that 7. But the audience did go with a 7 from the audience. I, though, will once again disagree with both the audience and this time Maggie. We'll see about Melissa. Last week I gave Helena a 6. That wasn't because her position was a 6. I thought her position was a 7, but I disagreed or sort of like docked her a point because of some of the mistakes that she made in the week, primarily revolving around the failed flip, the then just getting cold read by both Herman and Summer about the fact that she was lying. She got caught up in that. I thought she didn't play that super well. And then she also got caught by Jace lying about her final two with Marty, which put her in a weird spot and damaged her relationship with Jace. I felt like there were a lot of little things last week that for me meant that her rating should be a little bit lower than her position overall should entail. This week, it's the opposite. I feel like her position has improved from last week's 7, but minus some points on some things that happened. I feel like she won this veto. That's huge for her game. I think that Marty staying in the game is also huge for her game. I think that the position that her and Kevin are advancing into is great for Helena. I think that the fact that Josh kept some information from Kevin for a little while until finally divulging the information and continuing to prove himself to be a massive threat is all good for Helena, because it only means that they are going to sooner look at Josh than like letting him slip by, which would be very bad for Helena, I think, because I do think that Josh would take Kevin to the end, which would obviously not be good for Helena. So lots of good things there for Helena. I think this has been a very good week for her. I think that she's definitely a viable winner here. And if we look at Helena as the winner, I think we're probably looking at this week as the start of that path. Like the start of that path to like really separate herself from what Kevin is doing with this win and like sort of the direction that they're heading in. And so for me, I gave Helena an 8. Melissa.
Wow.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of like win equity, I think like Betty and Helena and Kevin and JC Lynn like need to get out like the people who other people are seeing as the big players. So you've got to get out like Gino, you've got to get out Marty, you've got to get out like even Moose, like you've got to get out Josh, you've got to get out these players that people see as actually playing the game, because the second, if you get to the end with them, it's clear that people aren't respecting, they're not noticing what's going on with their games. These like under the radar style, like games that Kevin and Betty and Helena and those players are playing. If it's not being seen, it doesn't matter. And it just looks like you've been skating to the end and doing nothing. So I am worried for Helena in terms of that perspective, just like I'm worried for Betty and Kevin and all those players. Because, you know, if you go to the end with someone who's kind of just been like out there in front, it's going to be really hard for the jury to look at the two of you and be like, oh yeah, you played a better game than this person who was like out there the entire time and still managed to make it to the end. And like, look at all these moves they can point to. And so I am worried for her in terms of like win equity. However, like, we still have so much game left to play. And like, obviously like this could absolutely turn around, but I just think that that's something that they need to start thinking about that type of thing now. And, you know, her winning this veto was certainly good. And I definitely think she's in a better spot than she was last week. I'm not really seeing people bringing up her name as a target, which is good, which means she has a little more leeway here. And if she can keep winning and keep working with people and keep moving forward, like I do see potential for a win if she can then convince the jury that she is worthy of a win. But yeah, I feel better game than I did last week. So I'm going to bump it up to a 7.
All right, there you go. Let's now talk about Jace. Let's move on to Jace. The audience feels that Jace is about on the same level as Gino. They also gave Jace a 5 this week. For me, I do still feel better about Jace than Gino, considering that Gino is a big target. I think that Jace, like Gino, made some very questionable decisions this week. I think that the rivalry with Summer, especially considering the fact that Summer is going to remain in the game, is not great for Jace. I think that the fact that she didn't use this power, I do think that at the end of the day, she probably just should have. Marty isn't as valuable to her as he is to Gino. And again, Gino knows and will know that the backdoor plan was in place. Plus the fact that obtaining however she got this power, obtaining this power and using it would have been a huge tick on her resume. And nobody would have known that it was her, I believe, until she decided to reveal it later, which would have been a great thing to like, it would have hidden the fact that she has another big tick on her resume until she needed it to be out there. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity. However, I do still feel like, again, the fact that Gino is a much bigger target ahead of her, we have people like Kevin and Helena, again, not today, but in previous days, talking about wanting to make sure they protect her over Gino. Even if they do take the shot at Gino, they want to make sure it doesn't land on Jace, because they do want Jace getting toward the end with them. I think that's very good for Jace. I feel like Jace still has a shot to win, considering the fact that as long as she outlives Gino, there are lots of other targets left, Marty, Josh, and then, you know, even if just Marty and Josh left after Gino, that means she's in the final 5 with Kevin, Helena, Summer, and Betty. And she's the person who's won the most amount of competitions out of all of those 5. And being the best person at competitions at Final 5 is a very not bad place to be. And that's only if those 3 leave back to back to back. There's a decent chance that one of them sneaks through and they're still the main target at 5, and she makes it down to 4 as the best competitor at that point. So I do still feel like she has a decent chance to win. I'm not quite. In fact, I feel like her position has improved since last week, where I had her at a 5, considering the fact that Gino won this HOH. But at the same time, I also feel like she has made a lot of poor decisions this week, and I do think that those decisions will limit her rating. So I also am at a 5 for Jace overall. Melissa, what do you think?
I feel like Maggie and I are on the same page on this one, because like I'm not playing this game anymore. This JC Lane game where we say that she's doing fine and that she's a decent player and that but didn't you see that conversation she had with so-and-so where she was really good? I mean, she had some good conversations with this person. Well, a conversation doesn't do anything if you don't do anything with it. So I'm not seeing it. I haven't been seeing it for a while, but I've been playing this little nicey game where we're sitting there saying like a conversation means something. But I don't believe a conversation means something anymore, because she's not doing anything with literally anything. I don't feel like she's playing. I don't feel like, she's making these bad moves. She got this veto that she could have done something and they could have followed through with this plan. And yet she chose not to do anything with it. So that they're just going to send out Moose? Like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't see her playing a game for herself at all. I see her just tagging along with Gino so that she can like hang out with him. And I just don't see her winning literally at all.
Who's voting for her?
I
can't think of who's like excited to vote for her. That's my thing.
Everybody is going to say that like she just went to the end with Gino. Like they're not going to give her any. Yeah, sure, she won some comps, but like if you don't do anything with those comp wins, then like who cares? Like
if she has Gino in the jury house, he's being like, she's really good.
Yeah,
guys.
well, we've seen Gino's like ability to manipulate.
I know, but
look, I'm not seeing it, and I'm not gonna sit here anymore and be like and say that like. I just feel like everyone's trying to give her so much credit when I don't see her doing literally anything. So like I'm giving her a 2, because I don't see her winning at all. And I don't see her playing. And then even when she gets this power to actually pull through with this plan that they started the week off with. And then she's like, nah, I'm just not going to use it. Forget it. Let's just like stick with our new plan that other people want. Like it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's a 2 for me.
All right, Maggie, what are your thoughts?
I'm giving her a 2. I thought I was going to be the crazy one, and I was going to give her a 2.
5s and 2s.
I just don't. Okay, so that's the thing. I see her being a losing finalist. If she wins her way to the end, right. I see her being like a Liz from Big Brother 17. Like, constantly attached to somebody else who everybody's going to give credit to. And like, I think that the second Gino leaves, Kevin and Helena are going to be able to sweep her up super easily, because she is easily manipulated. I have not forgotten that she said, Kyle, you're really bad at lying. Like, she's lost. She doesn't,
really like at lying.
Exactly. They're not going to be able to pick up. They're not going to be able to, Kevin and Helena are not going to be able to pick up Betty and Summer the way that they can pick up Jace. So like a final 3 with her, I think that they beat anyone that she goes to the end with, because I think that they could actually use her if she's going to be good at these comps as their sort of like battering ram to get to the end, the way that they think they can use Marty. And she just showed me this week at every single turn, she showed her complete lack of ability to get what she wants. Like, she has no ability to get what she wants. She's along for the ride. And she's always like, she's going to, if she does win these comps and Gino's gone, she's going to be looking for somebody to help her. And Kevin is going to be that person to help her, or Helena. So I just think like, I don't see it at all. I think if she this week got what she like. I'll walk you through it. Sure, they want to backdoor Marty, but she doesn't. She says,
I mean, she
okay,
did.
fine.
She was on board.
Okay. But she's like, okay, let's backdoor Marty. And then she starts being like, well, if backdoor doesn't go through, like Summer's a great option. She did not try once to get Summer out. Even if they backed off the backdoor Marty plan and decided that they didn't want to do it, she could have used the veto on Moose and gotten Gino to put up, Betty or Kevin or, somebody who
Well, I
wouldn't
think
have
if
gone.
the veto was used, he would have just put Marty up. I don't think there was probably time to talk that through.
Sure, but I think that if you have this veto and it's only good and you can't tell Gino you have it, you walk up to Gino and you say, okay, I want to work out with you what we're going to do if Helena unexpectedly plays the veto, because I'm not sure we should backdoor Marty anymore. And then you go through basically being like, this is going to happen. This is what I think should happen. Like there's ways to get around that. People are saying like she would have had to stand up and do it. I don't care. At that point, if I haven't had time to talk to my closest ally, but I need something to happen and I know that he might not do it, when I do that, when I take him off, I say, I'm taking you off because I would like Betty to go up in your place and stare at Gino until he does that. Like, I think that that's like, I'm sorry, like the position that she's in, the danger that her and Gino are in, like, I don't think that she's at the point where she can rest on her heels and not play anymore. And she just didn't play this week at all. And so that's why I had to give her a 2.
Yeah, I think there's no forethought to her game. I think that it's just like, okay, if I'm not going up this week and I'm not going home, then that's good. And that's all that matters. And so we'll just like play the next week as it comes. And I don't feel like she's really setting herself up well for literally anything.
I mean, these are very good points.
And also like I know that like it's easy to be like, oh my God, well, Jace would never, ever do that. Like she would never use the veto and be like, this is what I want to happen and go to Gino. Exactly. That's why I'm giving her a 2.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And like there are people who would, and they deserve 9s and 10s. Like that's the thing that is like, oh my gosh, this is good Big Brother, is when you do something like that. But even if she had been like, no, we're going to backdoor Marty, like, let's do it. Let's go for it. Again, like you said, Taran, like you said, Melissa, then she would have at least gotten credit for backdooring Marty, like, because then she could have claimed the credit for it. So that's all I have to say.
It sounds like the two of you see Jace in the same way that Kevin and Helena do, which is that they see her as somebody to drag to the end, and take to the final 3 because she's utterly beatable. I worry that that's not the case. I don't know that it's the right call for them ultimately. I do feel like Jace is the kind of player that could go on a bit of a run there at the end. And I do think she could win this game as I outlined. But again, I think you both make very good points. So here we are, 2s and 5s.
I'm so grateful, Melissa, that you said the 2 before I did, because I thought you were going to say like 4 and I was going to be like, I'm giving her a 2 and this is why.
No, yeah, I'm glad you said it too. Cause like, yeah, if it was just one of us, at least if it's 2 of us, there are others out there clearly, but if it's just one of us, then, I don't know.
All right, there we go. Let's move on then to Josh. Let's talk about Josh this week. This has not been the best week for Josh, but it also, like, in some ways it was the height of Josh's power, and in some ways he then kind of lost that. And in part because of decisions that I assume he made. That he said that he threw this veto, and I really think that's a mistake if he did. But he also said he threw the HOH, and it didn't seem like it in the episode. But the episodes are often more misleading than the feeds, so I'm choosing to believe the feeds version of Josh. But we do see that Josh is still in a pretty good spot, right? The people targeting Josh the most are the people he trusts the most, which is not great, right?
My loyalty definitely lies with the crash test dummies.
That's not good. But at the same time, the people targeting him most are his closest allies, Kevin and Helena, and they don't plan to do it yet. And they're also not the people most capable of doing it. Let's say that they really want to target Josh. Like, how are they going to make that happen unless they win and use their HOH on Josh? They have bigger fish to fry right now. They have to make sure they get out one of the showmans first. Then there's this whole Marty situation. Marty could certainly go after Josh, but he has been working on that relationship. I do think that Kevin and Helena would be able to get Marty to go after Josh for them if he wants. And that's why Marty staying, I think, is bad for Josh, ultimately. I think that I do see Josh as absolutely one of the top candidates to win still at this point. All it takes is for a couple of these next weeks or competitions to go his way. And by his way, I mean like just better for him than for Kevin. It seemed like that was what was going to happen this week. Anybody other than Helena had won that veto. Josh is sitting very pretty right now, but he had that bad break. But I have to blame him for the bad break because he threw the veto. So it's very back and forth here on Josh. I think he's still very well positioned. I gave him an 8 last week. I do think that his position is starting to decline now. So I'm going to give him a 7 this week. I feel like he's still a very talented player. I think he's still in a very decent spot, but he's running out of runway. I say this all the time, but Josh is heading toward a dead end, and he needs to either take off or go down a different path because a few weeks from now, if he's still on the same path and he hasn't taken off, then he's going to run smack into either a wall or right off a cliff, and it's not going to be great for Josh. So it's a 7 from me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree. However, I do kind of have to give him credit for the fact that he ended up in that 4-person alliance. He ended up knowing more about the situation with the Marty backdoor than Kevin did, or Helena, or anybody. Like he was in the know. And I feel like I do have to give him credit for being in the know. I don't know if he recognizes that, like, telling Kevin and then having Kevin know that Josh is doing things without him, like, kind of makes Kevin a little bit nervous about Josh, and maybe it's not the best thing to like reveal that sort of stuff. But at the same time, he does think of Kevin as his real ally versus, that foursome or anything. So it does make sense from Josh's perspective. But yeah, the fact that Gino and Jace want to work with Josh and want to be a part of this 4-person thing with them is a good sign. I think you're right that he should be a little nervous that his closest allies are interested in targeting him. But I think you're also right in that he has a little bit of time before that happens. I don't think that's going to happen immediately. So, I actually feel better about Josh this week than I did last week. So I'm going to give him an 8.
All right, there you go. An 8 from Melissa. Maggie, what do you think?
I'm just laughing at someone in the chat was like, Maggie, give Josh a 10 challenge. I'm not going to do that, guys. I'm sorry. I wrote down, like, I wanted to hear what you guys had to say. I wrote down like between a 7 and a 6, but after hearing you guys, I'm definitely going to go with the 7 because I was worried that Kevin and Helena were going to go after him, but you're right. When you think about it, like, can they win to do it? So, and I do think that there's easily a way where Josh wins out or Josh's closest allies win out. So I'm going to give him a 7. And he's just like so likable. He's just like the most lovely, likable guy. If I was in the house, I would want to work with Josh.
I mean, who wouldn't? I feel
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody wants to work with Josh. I think this is the best sound clip to exemplify it.
I've dealt with some definitely squirmy babies.
Is it? Is that the best sound clip?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
What, you like this one?
Fuck! I obviously had to tell my boy Kevin.
Yeah, that one's better.
No, he's dealt with some definitely squirmy babies, guys. All right.
Yeah, it's no bad boy.
Yeah, it's no bad boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, the audience agrees with Maggie and myself. The audience gave Josh a 7. There you go. All right. Let's move on to Kevin. Melissa, how do you feel about Kevin?
This is a tough one for me because I feel like there's pros and cons to his week. I feel like he, to start off with, not ideal that he was excluded from that 4-person alliance. And like, I keep bringing it up, and it's not like an actual, like, this is a 4-person alliance, they're taking it to the end, but just getting that information from people, like, especially people like who are currently in power, like, it's crucial. And so that's why I'm bringing it up. But basically, like, he was not informed of this whole thing. He wasn't a part of it. So that's kind of a knock on him. Because, this whole time he had been controlling everything, or at least aware of everything seemingly. And, this is like the first time that he was not involved. And that's a knock. But then at the same time, Josh immediately brings this information to him. So that's good. And then, he's able to make it so that the HOH is kind of steering away possibly from this backdoor Marty idea. Maybe not totally convinced. And maybe if Gino or someone like had won the HOH who would use it, maybe Gino still would have done it. But he was able to kind of steer him away a little bit and eventually make them okay for when Helena did win the veto and wasn't going to use it. And then they were kind of like, all right, fine, we're not going to do this backdoor plan. That's fine. To the point where JC Lynn even didn't use her secret veto about it. So I feel like that those are all really good things. I feel like on the whole, but I guess I also have to take into account the fact that, like, people are saying they don't respect his game. And I feel like that's going to be really huge. I really hope he can prove to everyone that, like, he is actually playing, and he's playing actually extremely well. But I feel like that's hard to kind of do if people already have their mind set on the fact that he's just there and he hasn't been playing. It's like when you see a person who really hasn't been playing be like, Raven, like, was the puppet master this whole time. It's like, no, you weren't. You just thought you maybe were, but you weren't doing anything. And I feel like that's going to be the problem he runs into, is even if he's able to sit there and be like, no, look at all these things I did, people are going to be like, you didn't actually do that. Because his game is just kind of so hidden. At the same time, I just feel like he's still doing really well. He's basically getting his way this week, which is really good for him. As best as he can get with a Gino HOH. So for that reason, I'm just going to stick with my 9 because I think he's doing a great job.
All right, Maggie, what do you think?
Oh no, I think people are going to be mad at me. I gave Kevin my highest rating, but I gave him an 8 because of his recovery was fantastic, but because of the slip up earlier in the week and the fact of the jury management, I am a little bit worried. He is so good. He really is. But I just feel like he might get Anthony'd, like, I think that people might look at him if he's next to somebody who was flashier and be like, oh, but it's Kevin, like I'm worried that even though he really knows what he's doing and is so good at it, I am concerned about the jury management of it. And, he got his way with keeping Marty, but I think that perhaps, the Josh conversation where he realized that Josh was not talking, to him and telling him everything was a wake-up call for him. But I feel like this was a week, if, he had a 9 last week, I don't think that he was better this week than he was last week. Like last week, he got out Herman. So that's why I'm going to give him an 8. Sorry.
All right. Well, Maggie, the audience agrees with you.
Okay.
But just barely. Let me tell you, and I kid you not, Kevin, an 8.49 from the audience. Just shy of the 9 from the audience. Kevin is going to land an 8 from the audience. But screw the audience. I'm giving him a 9. And the reason is I'm honestly not that concerned about the jury thing quite yet. I think there's a lot of time to go. And in my experience of interviewing the jurors on their way out to jury, they consistently lie to me unintentionally when it comes to their jury voting preferences.
Wait, what does Stephen Fishback say? Like exit interviews are not canon.
Yeah,
Like they're not.
exactly. So what I mean by this is that I think there's a lot of time for people to come to understand Kevin's game. And I also think there are a lot of people in the game who do like Kevin a lot and wouldn't mind seeing him as a player in the game, as long as the message is delivered in the right way. So, given the fact that we're just one jury member in and there's a long time to go, he didn't even know that he was supposed to be jury managing yet because Herman wasn't supposed to be on the jury. And yet he did leave a great message to Herman. Only gives me confidence that he will continue to leave good goodbye messages and hopefully send people out the door with, proper sort of information to help sell the game that he's playing. That said, I was still concerned about his jury chances last week before I heard from Herman. I'm still concerned about them overall. I do still think it requires work, and I do think that his end game still requires work. I'm still not sure that he is going to be able to guarantee his spot in that final two without just winning the competitions, which is not the best place to be. But I do still think he did some amazing work this week. Not quite as good as last week, but still very good, in my opinion, especially considering the fact that he was kept in the dark for so long this week. He was able to turn things around, get the information from Josh. We got confirmation that Josh is exceedingly loyal to Kevin. And through, I think, primarily work from Kevin, manages to get Jace to be in a position, in a headspace where she chooses not to use this twist to screw everything up. I definitely would give Kevin the bulk of the credit for that, considering that he was really the person by far pushing the most for the reasoning as to why it makes sense for Marty to stay. The reason why, like, Jace and Gino are able to go, you know what, now that Marty's staying, we have been hearing, like, there are a lot of reasons why it's good for Marty to stay. That's because Kevin's been pumping those reasons into their heads all week long. And yet again, Kevin is managing to get out of a week that started poorly and come out of a week looking very good on the other side of it. So I think great work from Kevin. Still concerned about his end game and all of that, but overall, it's still going to be a 9 from me. So there you go. That's it for Kevin. Let's talk about Marty. Maggie, how do you feel about Marty?
Well, he was saved by the grace of Helena's veto win and JC Lynn's 2-level, I think, performance this week. So not awesome. I think I can also see Marty being like a losing finalist. Because I think even though he'll have the comp wins, he doesn't know what he's doing, like, ever. And I think people don't view him as a good player. And I don't think that people like him very much. So I think people are targeting him. His win equity is really low. I do think that he has a shot to get, more towards the end if Kevin and Helena are wanting to take him. But I think that spot more likely is like going to be filled by someone like JC Lynn or Betty. Oh gosh, I don't know. I was sort of like moving between a 3 and a 2. I think I think I'm gonna go with a 3. Yeah, because I think because Marty got this week, this now gives him the opportunity to win some more comps and have the ability to get himself further. And last week was his HOH, which was abysmal, and he got a 2. So I do think the fact that he did nothing this week is at least better than being abysmal. Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't feel great about my 3, but I think that that's where I'm going to have to stick with.
Well, the audience does agree with you The audience gave Marty a 3 this week. I do not. Because that. I do not. I'm sticking with my 2 for Marty.
Sure.
He very nearly got evicted this week. The only reason he's not evicted, not because of like the personal bonds that he's made, but because he, as a piece on the board, serves a purpose for the people running the show, and he only serves a perfect purpose for them because he's easily manipulated by them and is disliked by everybody else. That's already like 2 status for me. He definitely has a hard time winning a jury over, in my opinion, even if he does make it there. Even if he does win a comp or 2 along the way, he's still a very high target for most people in the game. Marty is the person, apart from, unfortunately, like Moose right now, who's on his way out the door, who I see winning this game the least. I think Marty, in my eyes, has the worst chance of winning of anybody left in the game. And I'm going to give him the 2. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I'm between a 2 and a 3 for Marty, mainly because I gave him a 2 last week because he had a really terrible HOH, and I thought that he was out the door next week. Like, I really thought that like he was going to be leaving based on his performance during his own HOH, and I really believed that. Turns out he's not leaving. And I have to say, like, even if people are advocating to keep him, like, and the reason why they're advocating to keep him is because they like are using him as a piece or something, that's still a good thing. I mean, it's not great for winning, but at least it keeps you around. And I do think that like going from somebody who I thought was absolutely leaving because everyone wanted him out, or at least that was my thought, to now being like, well, are people actually going to want him out? I mean, they kind of prevented, I guess, this back door from happening. And now he could absolutely win HOH again. And it could just be a situation where he just keeps winning. And, it's like, I mean, he's proven that he can. And maybe then he gets to the end and he can then, justify everything and say like, look, I won out. Like, look what I did. I was working alone at this point, like, I don't think we should totally count him out just yet, even though right now it doesn't seem like people would be interested in really voting for him. So yeah, I think like from my perspective, he's kind of bought himself another week, and he could absolutely win HOH next week. I mean, this week, going into this week, he couldn't have won HOH. He was a sitting duck, and unless he won the veto, he was out. So he's still here. So yeah, I'm going to give him a 3.
There you go. A 3 from Melissa, Maggie, and the audience.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Now I might want to change it. I feel like that goes against the sanctity of the stock watch, though, so I won't.
I think the rule is that you can change it after the fact as long as it doesn't impact the overall rating, which would be the case here. So it is up to you.
No, I'll leave it. If it's not going to change the rating, it doesn't matter. But your take, Taran, really, I was like, yeah, it's all very, very true. You can't win.
All right. Well, let's talk about Moose then. We'll start with the audience on Moose. The audience gave Moose a 3 this week. Man, I don't want to do this to Moose. I really don't think that Moose is a terrible player. I think that he has not been a good player for a lot of the season. I think that his campaign right now is just not good. He's just not. It's another case of I genuinely think that Moose has potential for the game if he just knew what he was doing. But he doesn't know what he was doing. Doesn't know what he's doing because he doesn't know the show. And he doesn't really know the best way to campaign. He doesn't know who to campaign to. He doesn't know what kind of pitch he should be making. He's kind of constantly putting his foot in his mouth. And it's just not working. And it seems like his time is finally up. I'm tempted to give him a 3 here because even though he is campaigning poorly, it's not like super his fault that he's in this position. Like, it really did take a niche scenario for Marty to be safe, and Moose should have been good this week. He's not because of that. It's not like he's sending himself home directly like that.
But But I feel like that's more of like a 1.
Well, a 1 would be like he got himself on the block and is now like also sending himself home and is like just like really playing poorly. I don't think he's anywhere near a 1 for me. But I do think that he's just too messy here. And I do think that he could. This is the thing that is going to tip me over the line. I think he could stay this week. I do. I think that with the right pitch to the right people, there's a path for him to stay. And I don't think that it's going to happen. And it's because he's not able to make it happen. So it's not like it's something inevitable. There's nothing he could do. I'd give him a 3. It's not that case. So I've got to go with the 2 for Moose. I'm sorry, Moose. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think like part of it is that if he were a better player, he absolutely could stay this week. And I think that that's kind of where I'm coming from with this one, where it's like, it kind of is on him if he goes, just because like there's an easy argument to be made to stay, especially when you have the 2 of Moose and Summer on the block, where really like either one of them could be good or bad for everybody in the house's game. It's not like there's like a solid target where it's like, no, it makes sense to get this person out and this person doesn't make sense to go out. Like they both make sense to go out. They both make sense to stay for one reason or another. And I just feel like Moose isn't doing enough to save himself. I think that he is probably going to go home, and that's just, the way it is. So yeah, I got to give him a 2, unfortunately.
All right, Maggie.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the 2 as well. There really is a way for him to stay, and he just doesn't see it. And it's not like it's like a convoluted, very difficult Hail Mary way to stay. Like it's a fairly easy campaign, like it's you just have to say the right thing to the right people, and they basically like they're ready for you to do it. I wish Moose would have made himself more readily available to be picked up. And he just hasn't done that. Like people don't think they can pick him up as a number when he would be a much better number than Summer, because he would probably like listen to you and be more of a number than Summer will, because Summer is smart. Like you said, not that Moose isn't smart, but Summer is smart in the game, and Moose still doesn't know the game that well. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with the 2.
All right. Let's finally talk about Summer. Summer, who is on the block and could theoretically still go home this week. As I mentioned, there was talk today of potentially, could we flip this vote? Would we want to flip this vote? It did seem to again land back onto Moose. And it does seem like that has been sort of the rhythm of these players, this cast, is that they do tend to decide on Tuesday. I feel like that's been the case in a lot of these previous weeks. Every week we come on here on the roundtable, and it's like things have been kind of up in the air until today. It seems like maybe they've locked it in, and then it usually is. So I really don't expect things to change too much here for the nominations, or for the nominees. So with that in mind, I think Summer's probably staying. And I do feel like her game has certainly deteriorated quite a bit. Summer is still not somebody that I would completely count out yet, though. The social game that she had in the beginning of the game is not non-existent. People do still respect who she was at the start of the game, and I think you see that in Herman's sort of jury answers. I think that if she were to make it to the end, I feel like she has a very good chance of just straight up winning, even if she hasn't won a ton of competitions to get there. Obviously, it depends on who she sits next to, but I do think that she has a good chance. And the fact that she's lost a lot of competitions means that people may be willing to bring her there, or at least far along the way, where maybe she can win a competition or two and then grab that ultimate win. So I'm not too much further down on Summer than I was last week at a 5. I do think that being on the block is still going to hurt her this week, but I do feel like there's room for Summer to bounce back. I'm not going to go too low on Summer. I'm going to give her a 4 this week. Being on the block still could go home, but I do think there's potential for this to bounce back. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I agree. I think there absolutely is potential to bounce back, but I think at this point, like, I think I would give her a 4, but the fact that she's on the block and there is a chance for her to go home this week, like, that's not good. And I don't know if her staying has anything to do with anything that she is doing. I think honestly, it's just like, yeah, let's just get Moose out. I don't think that she's like convinced anyone to keep her. So, yeah, I mean, I do hope it bounces back. I'm looking forward to that if that happens. But at this point, I just feel like I'm just not really seeing it aside from the social aspect of it. And I feel like that, like I said in the beginning, that really can only take you so far. Really, once you hit the midway, it's like, you've got to have some game there. So yeah, I'm going to give her a 3.
All right, Maggie.
I'm going to give Summer a 4. I totally agree with everything you said, Taran. And I think that because she's not winning competitions, actually it is an asset for her right now if the people are going after the competition threats. And I could see her sneaking her way into a really good end game position and having a clutch win. And like you said, she does have respect, and I don't think it would take too much for her to earn that back if she made a run at the end, or, like won a final 3 competition and cut Kevin, like I could see her doing something like that and like clutching a win. So I'm going to give her a 4.
All right. Well, the audience also went with a 4, though it was close to a 3 here. I'm curious to look here at the history of Summer. Yeah, because it really it climbs up, peaks at week 3, and then 8, 7, 5, 4 here for Summer. It goes up, it goes down. It's peaked at an 8, so it went from, I think it went 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, 7, 5, 4.
Oh gosh,
yeah,
that's so sad. She was at an 8.
That was the height of her power. She got Gino to take out Kevin or Kyle. Man, what a week! It would have been a 10 if she had got taken out Kevin at that point.
Yeah,
we wouldn't have known it at the time. We wouldn't have known how big that was, but that would have been big.
Wow, that's crazy. Can't believe she went all the way up to an 8 and now is dropping.
Too bad. All right, so that's the stock watch for the week. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Let's see what this has done to the leaderboard in the stock watch. Let's pull it up. This is what the leaderboard looked like at the end of last week. And if we refresh the page, let's take a look at what it has done. Kelly drops into second place.
Oh no.
Ooh.
Kelly was in on Josh and Betty. I can tell you that's exactly what I did. I went all in on Josh and then put 1 in on Betty. But the Martis here, who went in on Kevin, takes the lead from third place to first. There you go.
Wow.
Nice.
All right. Jonathan there in third place went in on Kevin as well. All right, let's take a look at what happened to me here. Probably not much. But did I fall? I fell. I was in on Josh.
Tough breaks.
Yeah.
Them the breaks, kid.
Yeah. This really hasn't been my best season. I feel like most weeks I'm going in and I'm like, I'm pretty low on the person I bought this week. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All
My
right.
classic week. That's
Here we go. How did Melissa do? Melissa!
Woo!
In the top 10%.
Oh my God!
In on Kevin and Helena.
Helena.
Look, you've got the crash test dummies going on right here. Kevin, Helena, and Josh.
I have not changed from Kevin and Helena the entire time. I started with them, and then I just kept adding a little bit to them week after week, and then I had some extra, so I put a little bit in Josh.
You moved up 100 places. There you go. Yeah, you started with them, and initially that wasn't super great, but then you started climbing. And then you went down a little bit, and then you climbed.
Man.
So Melissa.
I'm even the best Melissa, which never happens. So
it's very true.
I'm feeling real good.
There you go.
Top 10%. I've never been top 10%.
I think this
I've
might be
always
the best.
been top 50%.
Yeah, this is probably the best Melissa performance we've ever seen.
Yay!
There we go. There we go.
Wow. I'm really perfecting this thing. Maybe I should start a Twitch stream about how to invest in a stopwatch.
Yeah.
A rival Twitch stream. I'm just like, don't listen to him. I'm 120
This is
You only
the
go live at the
Melissa
same
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, if you want to actually do well in the stopwatch, listen to me.
Don't actually change your buys.
Yeah, don't do anything. Just leave it. Just start with something and leave it. Don't touch it. Don't even look at the stopwatch.
Yes. All right. So that's what we have. That's the week. Interesting progression here. Will the crash test dummies continue to dominate the stock watch, or will there be a crash in the market as we move forward here? Who knows? Who knows? Any final thoughts, Melissa?
Nope, nothing really. I did want to say something kind of funny, which is that apparently my dogs have been trained to, when I say, I'm going to say it in a different tone than I normally do, so hopefully they don't notice it. But when I say good podcast, guys, at the end, every time I sign off, like after we end the broadcast, I say that to whoever I'm podcasting with, and they recognize that the way I say it now, and they come running. Like they're like, it's over. Okay, we're here. And I had no idea that they were like so in tune to that. But anyway, that's my final thought.
That's so cute. I love it.
They're literally trained.
That's amazing. Maggie, any final thoughts on the week?
No, I hope I did well in my first stock watch appearance. This was so fun. Thank you for having me, you guys. I loved it. This was great. I'm so glad that I got to talk about all my weird niche overarching theories that sometimes on the update, it's not really the right spot for it, but I do it anyway. So thanks for having me.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Maggie, and thank you for joining us to everyone that joined us here tonight or who was listening or watching after the fact. We appreciate you all. Make sure you check out the live feed update tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I will update you on everything that happened today on the Big Brother Canada 10 live feeds. Tomorrow night, I will be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching the episode live with all of you, and then watching the Survivor episode live as well. And then I'll be recording about both of those episodes after the fact, so you can check those podcasts out tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, I'll be watching the eviction, and we'll be live after the eviction to talk about what went down and hopefully be able to discuss the new HOH and where things are heading in the next week. So check all of that out. You can also find me over on Twitter at Armstrong Taran, and check out the Taran Show with Gabby this week. Very, very good stuff there with Gabby. Maggie, where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at mlmorgan_. And I am every week recording with the amazing Kirsten McInnes. We're covering Temptation Island over on the Hot Dummies on Islands feed and the RHAP network. It's been super fun so far. There has been mild cheating, no full-blown cheating yet, but I do think it's coming.
What's mild cheating versus full-blown cheating?
Well, mild cheating is like...
Is it like hand-holding and like eye contact?
Oh, no. It's like making out. It's making out, but it's like, okay, that's like sort of allowed because they are in an open relationship, but like their only rule is that like you should respect me. And then like the person then like watches and they're like, I feel disrespected. And it's like, you know, maybe we should have more clearly defined rules. So that's why it's just mild cheating. It's not like full-blown cheating, but I do think that there will be some full-blown cheating by other people fairly soon. And there is somebody on the show who literally calls themselves Juicy. Like their name, like their tag is Juicy. So if that sounds like anything that would interest you, you should check out the pod.
Check it out. All right. Well, you can, of course, find Melissa at It's Melissa with 3 A's. 3 of those A's. And that's it. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.